Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Trader Merlin for your Monday edition. Another just wild Monday. I did not expect it to have such a big gap up this morning, but lo and behold, we did. We'll certainly talk about that. As a, I guess, weekend cleanup, I think I told you I was going to see a show Sunday night called a band called Max Sabbath, which does Black Sabbath cover songs, but they changed the words to make it all entertaining and humorous around fast food. I gotta say, if you get a chance to see Max Sabbath, I would encourage you. They're all dressed up like Ronald McDonald's characters. It was very bizarre, but it was absolutely hilarious. Great show, and I saw it at a pretty small venue, so good night. Anyway, and then Big Eb, I don't know if you saw the picture that I posted on my Twitter feed. I thought you'd appreciate that golf suit. When we play golf one of these years, I'll wear some crazy outfit like that. 'Cause it has to make up for my subpar golf. My costumes need to be on point. Anyway, let's dive into the topic du jour, which I really didn't want to do this topic just because it borders on the political side, and I try to stay out of it. But I received 2 questions over the weekend, and I want to make sure I get a chance to answer all those. So first one was, do you think the worst is behind us with Israel and Iran? That's from Lee. And then I actually like this question here, which is, what do you personally do when we have market-moving wars or conflict, from Bryce? So let me get into that one. Do I think that the worst is behind us? I don't know. I have no idea. I just know that can of worms is now open. Well, is open again, and does it calm down? We did see, I think was a Wall Street Journal or one of the New York Times or something, ran a story that Iran is open to negotiations, de-escalate this a little bit. And I don't know what to believe from either side, either political party. So I try not to, put my 2 cents in there. Obviously, what I want is for them to come to some agreement, and let's come to a peaceful agreement that doesn't hurt the citizens of either country. And I think a lot of it revolves around, obviously, the nuclear energy program. So it sounds like Iran is open to talks there. Great. Is the worst behind us? You never know. It's been calm for quite some time, and then all of a sudden it just can escalate. And that goes into Bryce's question, which is a great one. What do you personally do when we have markets, moving, wars, and conflicts? So here's my 2 cents on it. I think it's too dangerous for you to try to anticipate what the result of this conflict is going to be, how quickly it passes or how quickly it escalates, or how long it takes to de-escalate or escalate. I think those parts are totally out of your control. So what I do personally, and this is not what you guys should be doing, just what I do in my own trading, is I attempt to de-escalate the situation by putting myself in a trade or trades that may not be as heavily impacted. Obviously, when you have these types of events, the market can move 5, 6, 7% in no time, but there's other segments that may not move as much or be as impacted. For example, if you're trading airline stocks right now, or you're trading crude oil or defense stocks, boy, expect to have much higher than normal ATRs than you would have over the last, 8 months or so, simply because those could be directly impacted by these actions. So what's in my portfolio? Well, I've got a few things in there. I'm long semiconductors. I am long Microstrategy, which I think we'd all agree Microstrategy is going to have zero impact directly from this conflict, right? I have United Health, which I sold more. Actually, my shares of United Health were taken away on Friday. I sold some more puts today at the 305 strike. Collected just over 1.5% for the week, and I sold the 305 strike. So I sold some puts there, so technically I'm going to be long United Health. And then, of course, we'll talk about Circle here in a minute. So I've got fairly limited positions right now, but I think all of those are somewhat resistant, at least from the direct impact of any war or conflict between Iran and Israel. Now, if this was a conflict between, let's say, Taiwan and China, then I'd probably want to get out of anything to do with semiconductors, chips, and technology because of that increased volatility. Now, this is a stark contrast to how I would have looked at this or how I would have traded this maybe when I was in my late 20s. I would have gravitated towards the conflict. And if my younger me would say, hey, let's go out there and trade those airline stocks. Let's go out and look at American Airlines and trade these really big swings. I mean, American Airlines was at $12 on Wednesday, bottomed out at like $10 and 20 something cents by Friday. I mean, that's pretty significant moves there for United Airlines. And you could look at oil prices. We all know that there is plenty of volatility there, and the younger me would have gravitated towards that volatility. The older me doesn't care anymore. They don't. And I know some of you do. Some of you want that volatility. You want to get the big home runs, the grand slams. I don't care. I'd rather grind away and just keep, getting singles, doubles, the occasional home run. So I really I move away. I shy away from that. So Bryce, that's the way that I approach it. I definitely, I don't do anything, I would say, different or strategic to take advantage of that situation. Instead, I'm looking at something, a way to put me out of harm's way. Now, that's dealing with the conflict between Iran and Israel. What about the tariff war between U.S. and China? Well, am I exposed to that? I would contend that Microstrategy is not very, going to be hit very hard by that. I think United Health is probably immune to that as well. We talked about that on kind of building a tariff-proof portfolio. I think that was a question from LA. Those are the things I'm trying to mitigate the risk and reduce my risk exposure at all times. So to me, that's it. Steve says, I sold lots of airline puts on Friday. Premiums are crazy. Exactly. I mean, of course they're going to be crazy. And to the point I saw here earlier, Big Eb says, buy the dips on conflict, in my opinion. Long-term, it works out. And I think it depends on the extent of what that conflict is. But Big Eb's right. If you've got a long-term perspective, right, you're looking at buying things at a value play, and all of a sudden, specific securities drop 20 or 30% in a period of 2 or 3 days, you know that there's panic mode there. Now, is there validity to some of those moves? So, Steve was talking about some of those airline stocks. Let's go to United Airlines. So United Airlines, if we go back to kind of the early set of this, we'll go back to its peak here from last Monday to its bottom. United Airlines fell 15% in 4 days. On the grand scheme of things, it actually was a great time to be selling puts because you're right at this lower demand zone. Well, not really demand zone, but just an area of consolidation that goes back to the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd of May. So you're buying right into that area. Great. Would have been some great premium. And it's on an uptrend. So plenty of arguments for Big Eb there, which is buy the dips. The trend has been up for the past few months. Therefore, you're buying a scared pullback. The only part, not the only part, but one of the major things that's flawed with that tactic, though, is what if this escalated, right? What if this continued to escalate significantly and put you in a position that you had a big position in United Airlines or oil stocks or whatever, and, heaven forbid, the big nuke dropped or something catastrophic like that, now your portfolio is going to be decimated. But on that scale of probability, was that the high probability? Probably not. Just more rockets and missiles, but nothing hopefully in the nuclear category. So I agree with Big Eb. If you are long-term focused, great. If you're a short-term swing trader, I think you need to be a little bit more strategic because catching a falling knife is great, as long as it's at an area of demand like you see here on United Airlines. Well, what about American? American, I would argue, was actually below those levels. So that same level on United Airlines, if we look at that on American, it'd be about $11. Well, we fell all the way down to 10 and a quarter. So we're still not out of the woods yet. I know, what was that, Lee? Lee asked that question. Are we out of the woods? I don't know. I don't think we're out of the woods yet. And again, it can escalate at any moment. But for me, I'm just going to try to stay out of industries which might be impacted by this. Big Eb says, I don't touch airline stocks. I will every now and again. Every now and again. A couple years back, we talked about airline stocks, and I ended up buying a few of them and did well. But generally not my area of expertise. But, if something's down that much in a short knee-jerk reaction period of time, quite often you can get some screaming deals. And if you look at the charts here, I don't have volume on this one. Normally I have volume on my charts. Let me just add that in here. I don't see too much panic going on last week. Normally, if I'm looking for, to be buying something on a big drop like this, I want panic. I want to see significantly higher volume, that pain point where you're like, oh, people were doing dumb stuff, right? They were just unloading their stocks because they were fearful. I don't really see that happening here on United Airlines or American Airlines, etc. We'll see Delta. It's going to be the same picture, but you notice not really that anything out of the ordinary here with regards to volume. Now, if this was like double or triple volume, then I'm probably feeling a very optimistic about buying that pullback. If it's in a demand zone and got really high volume on it, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to buying at those levels. Unfortunately, I didn't see anything that really tickled my fancy. As Bonnie says, are you not in any Tesla? I am not in any Tesla at the moment. Not in any Tesla. I was kind of hoping it would have sold off a little bit more, and I was a little bit too cautious. I didn't go sell some puts like I wanted to back around. It was around 280. And here we are now at 329, continuing to move up on Tesla. Bring the chart up for you. And you notice that conversation piece that I just discussed, right? I just talked about high volume, massive sell-off into demand zone. Well, if you were to go back to this level here, and of course, I know you're all thinking hindsight doesn't matter. Just it lines up right with what I was talking about. There is a demand zone, which is really not a great demand zone per se, but it's just the turning point here. We had a climactic volume into that demand zone right around 275, and then it ripped out. I mean, that was the perfect day, in my opinion, to be selling puts, but I just did not. I was not around. Remember, that was Thursday, the 5th. I was in Vegas. I was in Las Vegas. I was traveling to Las Vegas that day, but no position on Tesla right now. I'm being fairly selective. I've just been doing really well with my Microstrategy, and I've been staying there. So let's see, what else do I have? You guys have all kinds of good chat coming through here, so I'll just run through that one real quickly. Steve says, by the way, Steven and Chad, Mamon, for those of you, I saw you guys in the Discord room the other day. And again, I didn't plan on being a moderator and being in there all the time, but I'm going to try to, if I get some time to jump in there. I know that Mamon was in there all day in the futures room waiting for someone to join him, and Steve and Chad put in some nice commentary in there. So for those of you who are in there, I'll try to be a little bit more active, and there you go. All right, let's see. What else do we have? Hey, Big Ev, you laughed at Max Sabbath. You got to check it out. It was so funny. It was so entertaining. Just very different than what you would normally see at a concert, but it was very good. Okay, let's see. Steven says, I heard that 40% of all the world's oil moves through there. Yeah, I've heard it's an exceptionally high number. I don't know if it's exactly 40, but that's why we saw oil surge like that, right? If such a large volume of oil goes through that area, then there's a possibility for massive disruptions, and that's kind of why people are freaking out. Let's see. Thoughts on crypto right now for Eric with the CK, spelled the best way, by the way. Let me digress just a little bit and go into I was going to talk about Empire State Manufacturing Index, but let's talk about crypto just a little bit, because last week there was a genuine question from a viewer who was perplexed that why the heck isn't Bitcoin following gold? It should be this flight to safety. It should be the anti-establishment currency. It should be inverse inflation hedge. Oh, thank you, Eric. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Crypto did well today. There's a lot of stuff on the plate, and I talked about this with you guys last week, I believe. It's certainly going to be a big discussion tomorrow on my crypto program, which is the bills going through. And I mentioned we have the Genius Act, which is making progress. It should have been done last week. Senator Lummis is saying it's going to be this week now, and other reporting agencies are saying it could be several months. I think we're going to see it in a couple, if not this week, by the end of the month, right? I think you'll see the Genius Act go through, and that should be a big catalyst, which is why we've seen Circle, which I'll bring up here in just a second, and a lot of crypto start to do rather well. Now, when I talk crypto, generally, I'm looking at Bitcoin. So if you look at the price of Bitcoin, I've mentioned this many times over the past month, is that this yellow box I have on the screen here, which is between, call it 101,800 and 104,000. You got that yellow box there. And to me, that's kind of the floor that is being put into Bitcoin right now. And if that gets broken, then I think we've got some pretty significant potential downside moves. This is the futures one, Margaret. I personally would much rather use the spot one. So let's do that. Thank you for saying that. And my numbers are going to be somewhat similar. You know, the tails are a little bit different because this is a more liquid trading market. This is not the futures market. This is the spot market. And if I were to extend this and go to the tail from there, you know, we're something similar. But 100,760 up to 103.5. So it's a generalized area there. Now, as far as what's been happening here, we talked about this actually on Friday the 13th. I remember talking about this one, which was on Friday, which was the tail came right back into that. I think some of you mentioned a hammer formation. It looks pretty darn good. Yeah, I use the Bitstamp one. Bitstamp is decent liquidity. The Binance one should have better liquidity, but this one goes back farther than the Binance chart, Margaret. That's why I chose it. And for those of you who like to see the entire history, I did find a really cool chart for the crypto fans out there. And it's right here under indexes. And it's Bitcoin USD, but search under indexes, Margaret. If you search under indexes, what that brings up is a chart of Bitcoin that goes all the way back to inception, which I have not been able to find on any exchange. And I'm zooming in here because you can see now. This goes back to October of 2009. Now keep in mind, Bitcoin started in January of 2009. So there's this 8-9 month window of time that there's no track record of price. There was no exchanges anywhere that traded Bitcoin, right? It was the stuff of nerds. They were just sending it back and forth on bulletin boards. There was no market to track price. So if you BTC USD and look under indexes, that will get you the farthest back that I've been able to get as far as record keeping goes for Bitcoin. So if you want to check out historical data, look at the 4-year cycle, that's the chart that you should use. So you can use that one. You can use the Bitstamp one. I just wanted more historical data. That's really big for me. The margin requirements on Bitcoin futures is huge, Stephen. Because it's 5 Bitcoin. Off the top of my head, I can't remember, but it's a very large margin requirement. Very large margin requirement. So as far as what's going on right now, and I think I may actually be doing another video for bar chart here soon, which is going to be talking about the probability of this thing continuing on up. I mean, look at the picture. This is a monthly chart. Does anyone in this room right now, anybody, and forget your feeling about Bitcoin, right? Don't look at Bitcoin and say, I love Bitcoin, therefore it's got to go up. Just pretend that this was any chart. Does this look bullish or does this look bearish? It's a no-brainer, right? And this is a monthly time frame. And I had the privilege of connecting with a really good friend of mine who I haven't talked to in like 15, almost 20 years. And who knows, maybe I'll bring him on the show. But he's kind of one of my mentors that got me started in trading back in the late 90s. He was my first instructor at Trading Academy, believe it or not. And he says that the daily for him now that he's a much older guy, he says the daily for me is like looking at the 15-minute chart back in the day. He goes, I like weeklies and monthlies. Yeah, I mean, you guys are all looking at that chart. It's bullish, bullish, bullish across the board. Steven says, bearish if you stand in your head. Well, the reason I bring this up is so many people are saying negative things about Bitcoin, but the chart still looks really good. And even if I switch this over to a weekly, it gets a little choppier, right? But it's still making higher highs and higher lows. And that's the piece that I've been arguing, is saying as long as it doesn't start to make new lows or swing lows, which would be, in my opinion, getting below this 100,500, then I think we're okay. You go back to the daily, and it does feel like we've been just kind of teetering back and forth for the past month. But let's be fair here. It's still moving up. Trend is great. It's just slowed down for the month. And to Eric's question, what about crypto? Look, I can't emphasize it enough. And for those of you who are in crypto, you do know this, that the Genius Act and then the Clarity Act will come right after it. Once that happens, the Genius Act is great. It's clarity. It's understanding what stablecoins can and can't do. And there's all kinds of other garbage being put in there, unfortunately, but that's typical with bills. The Clarity Act is the one that we all are just kind of biting our fingernails on, because you don't know how that's going to shape up the entire industry. Stablecoins is obviously the foundational part, because that allows you to bring fiat into a digital dollar, and now we can do whatever we want with digital dollars. Now it's what's a security, what's not a security, what is allowed to be in the United States, do meme coins get removed, what's the proof of project? A lot of questions are going to have to get answered in that Clarity Act, and that will probably take months to get to the finish line. If and when that is done, I think you see a huge move up in crypto. And I actually do think it'll happen before November. I think that's going to be the catalyst that causes us to surge and get to my $250,000 price target by November. And you guys all know I'm still there. I'm still standing on that hill of 250,000 Bitcoin. And people are more and more going, you're crazy, you're out of your mind, there's no way that's going to happen, you're a fool. Okay, I don't care. You can call me all you want. It doesn't matter what your insults may be if you don't like it. If you don't believe it's going to get there, then don't buy it. Here is... Let's see, that should be November on your screen. So that the vertical line right there would be November. So my expectation is that from today, which are right here, we have in days, 138 days to get to November, my target. And if we achieve that, that's 131% gain from current levels, which... For some of you may be like, there's no way that would happen. Look, if we pass this Genius Act and the Clarity Act goes through, a lot of money is flowing institutionally. I don't know if you guys saw over the weekend, there was comments that banks can now custody Bitcoin. And I've been saying this for months now, is that by the end of this year, your Chase account, your Bank of America account will probably start sending you documentation once they have it all set up on how you can now transfer your cryptocurrency over to Wells Fargo, and they will manage it for you and do yada, yada, yada. That opens up more adoption, easier use, easier access to the retail population, and to me, that's another big catalyst. Now, when we get there, if we get there to that 250,000 price target, fingers crossed, even higher than that, that should be right in line with that 4-year cycle, which is historically a monstrous down move. 70 to 80% down move. And I have my thoughts, but we won't go into that right now. Most of you have heard it before on what might cause this giant sell-off in the price of Bitcoin and digital assets. So that will be that'll be a topic of discussion once we finally get there. All right, what did Liz say here? It's on an article from some clown saying that if Bitcoin breaks 100K, the next stop is 23K. You never know, man. It could, In my mind, what makes this so special to me, and I think it actually makes it special for many people here, is the math behind Bitcoin, right? There's not a person in this room that can tell me on the snap how many shares of Apple there are, how many shares of Microsoft there are, how many shares of Cisco there are, how many shares of GE there are. You can look it up, but you don't know the maximum. And they could also issue more shares. They could split those shares. They can manipulate that supply to infinity and beyond. With Bitcoin, they cannot, right? Bitcoin's got 21 million. Now, we talked about fractional reserve banking. That might change the supply, the implied supply of crypto, but I'm not so concerned about that right now. What I am concerned about is adoption. And if I had to choose between Bitcoin going from 100,000 to 23,000 or Bitcoin going from 100,000 to 250, I would bet the farm on 250. Trend is your friend to the bend at the end, and all the political stuff right now, political meaning legislative branch of our government, is pro-crypto. The executive and the legislative branches are pro-crypto at this point. So you've got 2 out of 3 branches of our government are pro-crypto, and who knows, we might even be able to sway the judiciary. Yes, Michael Saylor did buy another. Michael Saylor said he bought another 1,000. So if you go here, you can always keep track by going to go to Twitter, and you can follow him. I encourage you to follow him, even though it's kind of ridiculous at a point. He's just such a fanatic. But you look here, they bought another 10,000 Bitcoin, 10,100 Bitcoin for $1 billion at $104,000 per Bitcoin. They currently have 592,100 Bitcoin in their portfolio, apparently. And of interest for me is their average is 70,000. Their average is $70,000, a little bit higher than that, but $70,000 per Bitcoin is their average. And again, we've talked about what might be that black swan for crypto, which could cause it to crash in November or early next year. And I think that could be part of it. Margin calls and sell off here. Yeah, Margaret, prove it. I'm with you. I prove it with you. So let's see. Big F says, we only need to get above 5,000 Bitcoin per week to get to that. I don't think that's that big of a deal. $5,000 up moves in Bitcoin is nothing. And what's going to happen here, Big Ab, and others that are crypto fans, there's going to come a day where you turn and you're like, oh my gosh, Bitcoin jumped $20,000 today. Like that. It'll happen so quick. It's happened in the past, and now because you have these massive institutional players and government players coming online to buy Bitcoin, I think that's going to happen much, much faster. Absolutely. On a side note, I heard an interesting theory that Satoshi may have been John Nash, who died in 2014. I don't know if it's John Nash. There's a couple other fingers pointing at different people. My thought was a guy named Dan Held, who's alive, and he's like, I'm not Satoshi. We know he's British, and you can tell by the words that he's used in his emails. But look, the conspiracy theorist in me says this, that this was created by the CIA, and because Satoshi Nakamoto, if you loosely translate it, means intelligence central, which central intelligence, so it could be CIA, created this as a test to see if they could digitally control the money supply. So they throw out Bitcoin as a test to see if electronic money works. Now all of a sudden it's working. Then we'll get governments to have a CBDC. And part of me in my mind is going, that's really what happened here. I don't believe it was a person. I think it was a group. But who knows? I hope we never find out who Satoshi Nakamoto is. Let's just let it be the big mystery that goes on and on and on forever. I'll be rolling these call. Yeah, me too, Lisa. Although let's see. Hope I didn't get covered calls on... Hope I don't have covered calls on Microstrategy when Bitcoin rallies $20,000 in a day. Me too. I'll just keep selling puts as it rallies up. I sold the 375 strikes today on Microstrategy. My 380s were taken away last week. So let's go MSTR. So here is, I guess I need to adjust these numbers. This last couple weeks has been great for those of us in MicroStrategy because it's done nothing. It's really just kind of putzed around. It's gone down to a low of 360. It's at a high of 390. So it's, it's in an 8-9% range. So selling weekly calls against your position has been fantastic on this. So let me bump this number back here to 375 because that's my latest strike that I sold today. And I got those expiring Friday. If I get it, great. I'm happy to own it at 375, and I'll just sell, 375s or 400 calls against it. Oliver says Scottie Pippen is Satoshi. Now, it is funny how much Scottie Pippen has become, orange pilled. He is definitely a very, very, very big Bitcoin proponent right now. And part of it, there's a couple of athletes that'll start to probably get a lot more popularity if Bitcoin does hit 250. And you remember there are several athletes, and we're talking multi-million-dollar contracts that they said, don't pay me in dollars, pay me in Bitcoin. And at the time, people were like, okay, idiot, take your Bitcoin. And that's when Bitcoin was down at $50,000, and here we are now at 100,000. Who's winning now? We'll see if this thing gets at 250. Oliver says range bait. Certainly, it's actually slowly trending up. So when I get my call or my puts exercised, if I get them exercised, then I'll sell them a few points higher and hopefully capture this nice smooth uptrend here. It's been great. I do have another set of MicroStrategy puts that I sold at 400 because I actually thought we would be rallying more and be above 400 by this Friday. So I sold the 400 strikes, guys, and I collected $25 per share. So if we end up closing this Friday below 400, okay, well, I'll have a few hundred shares more of MicroStrategy, but also have collected $25 premium. So my average price there would be 375, which is my latest strike anyway. So this just kind of going a little bit bigger there on MicroStrategy. Multiple positions, one at 400 strike expiring this Friday, and I've got some at I have some at 400 and I have some at 375. So there you go, full transparency on what my positions are. Eric, I don't know if you have any specific questions on crypto. I know you said what's the status of crypto. I'm bullish across the board. Now I think what's going to happen is there's going to be a filtering out period. You're going to have a lot of these companies. I can't even say company. A lot of these projects, right? Like Solana, Cardano, Avalanche. Right now, Cardano made an announcement that they want to sell some of their treasury and buy Bitcoin with it so they could generate extra yield for holders. I'm like, some people are looking at it as great. Others are going, dude, you're just doing the same thing MicroStrategy is doing. Is that necessarily a bad thing? What it does is it creates another buyer for Bitcoin, which in my opinion, the more the merrier. If we look at the ecosystem, Eric, and Eric, since you asked, let me know what you want more clarity on. And maybe that's something that I should do a basic lesson for everybody here is how is crypto fragmented? Meaning we've got payment networks. You have layer 2 networks, which help facilitate your base layers. You have smart chain projects like Cardano, Ethereum, Avalanche that are kind of those base layers that people plug into. But you've got DeFi protocols like Aave and Compound and MakerDAO and SushiSwap, Uniswap, Thorchain. Those protocols are going to be under a set of scrutiny from regulators as well. You have privacy chains, and you can fragment this entire ecosystem into hundreds of little slices of the pie, if you will. When I do that, particularly with my students in the focus course, I do it with a purpose, and that purpose is I want to kind of compartmentalize how this ecosystem of crypto is broken apart. Therefore, when I start to hear about regulations in the Genius Act or in the Clarity Act that might impact one specific segment, I already know who the targets are. So if they do like I suspect, which is I believe that the government is going to crack down on privacy coins. They're going to let crypto through as long as they can track your transactions and know exactly what you're doing. So cryptos like Monero or Zcash will get pushed off of US exchanges. And I think that'll probably happen next year, that you will get an announcement that says from Coinbase, we're going to delist Monero and we're going to delist Zcash because of regulatory pressure and rules. I think that's what's going to happen. So I know right away, I just sold all my Monero. And by the way, Monero has been rocking. Monero was on an unbelievable move. I sold all of mine out at 330. You can see the line on your screen there. It was an order I had in the system for over 2 years. I sold all my Monero at 330, and I was cursing myself because it rallied up to 420. Crazy. And now all of a sudden, it's back down to 327. So I'm all out of my privacy coins. I have no exposure there, but at some point, these will get delisted. So it's important for anyone that's in that crypto space to understand how it's fragmented, right? Technician JD says, I think that my 100 put for Friday on Circle is toast. Probably. So, I'm going to let mine expire. I still have the 110s. I opened up new puts today, expiring Friday. One more swing at this one. Circle. So here's Circle. And, I created a little bit of a graphic for this, which is this chart here. This graphic says Circle going parabolic. Like the move that happened today was just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So this morning, when I saw it just going parabolic, I bought some puts again. I bought the 140s. I paid $2.50 for them, and they're in the money now, which is great. But you notice you got this great shooting star on Circle. I'll add another line on here so we can see the 2 strike prices that I have, just so we can keep it there for reference. And I will put that at 140. Come on. There you go, 140. And these all expire Friday. So this is a very aggressive trade. And oops. There we go. This is 140. So I'm going to copy this. And I'll put this up here so you guys know the strike prices. And I have the long 140 puts. Okay, so I have a couple positions still here. I still believe we're going to be sub 100 be kind of a stretch from here. Sub 100, I think it'll be a stretch. But I think that my earnings on the 140 put will probably offset the losses from my 110 put, and it'll end up being a wash. So the pattern today was great. You had high volume, increasing volume with the shooting star formation on a stock that, as we mentioned, just on the 5th of June was told by all the institutions, all the banks said it's $27 is what this is worth. And here we are today, hitting an intraday high of $165. If that's not irrational exuberance, I don't know what is. So this is going to crash. I didn't want to buy the Julys yet. If not, I will keep taking swings at this one because it's going to crash at some point. Not crash, but at least come back down to its normal valuations. Do I see it at $60, $70? Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Glenn says, it can't go up anymore. You know the famous last words. It just can't go up anymore. That'll be at 400 in no time. But you've got just FOMO buying going on with Circle right now. Still a great company, but way overvalued at current metrics. And even if they were to gain a lot more market share, right now they're at $60 billion worth of assets. If they got to $200 billion, that still wouldn't be enough assets under management in stablecoins to get them the yield to warrant valid justification for that. Because I have the July 18th Circle put at $100. It would be nice to go sub 100. Yes, I'm with you. Sub 100. That's where we're going. Did you see Shaq had to pay that lawsuit for? I did not see that. No, I did not see that. I feel bad for some of these celebrities, right? Like, you look at Steph Curry, and I mean, I don't know him personally, but from everything that I've seen, Steph Curry seems to be like one of the nicest, kindest, stand-up guys. Doesn't seem like he's crooked or shady. He doesn't insult people. He always seems to be, he's a little cocky on the court. He's also one of the best basketball players ever. You know, he did an FTX commercial, and I don't think that he got in trouble for any of that, because, you know, his agent came to him and said, hey, do you want to do an FTX commercial? They're going to pay you $1 million. Like, sure, why not? Yeah, fine. Brings up an interesting question. To what extent do these endorsements have liability, right? So if someone were to come to me and say, hey, Merlin, we'll give you $1 million if you talk about, you know, some widget on your program, am I now responsible if that widget's a rug pull or, you know, causes people to lose money? I don't know. Not sure. From Circle to a flat line. Well, Circle will stay. Circle's not going anywhere, guys. You know my take, right? I did a whole show on it, so I'm not going to waste our time doing that again. But Circle is a great concept. It's a brilliant idea, and it's got monstrous backers. So I think that Circle is fantastic. I just don't think it's at these prices here. GD says, and what about cold storage? Will they want to ban that as well? So part of the Genius Act is actually fighting for the right to self-custody. And I think that could be contentious to a point. I think that if you look at the politics of it, I believe that the Republicans will be much more self-custody is okay, and I think the Democrats will probably no self-custody. So that said, under the current administration, it does feel like we've got the right people in place, at least from a policy perspective. Forget about the people themselves, but at least from a decision-making process to allow us to self-custody. Now, are they going to make it illegal? I doubt it. And even if they did say you can't self-custody your Bitcoin, I'm just going to stop showing my balances in my class, but I will continue to self-custody my Bitcoin. I don't trust the exchanges, Coinbase, Kraken, Binance, Gemini, and as sure as heck, I'm not going to trust a bank when they finally open their doors and say, hey, keep your Bitcoin with Wells Fargo or Chase. Nah, I'm good. That's the point. You guys remember, if you really study Bitcoin and read the white paper, for those of you who might be new, go to Google and type in Bitcoin whitepaper.pdf. You can download it right there and read the first 2 pages. It's basically a middle finger to the banking system. Banks were screwing over customers for years and censoring transactions and freezing people's accounts. They can't freeze your money with crypto. I mean, technically they could, but it'd take an incredible act for them to freeze an account. So, let's see. You have to have a big disclaimer. Yeah, well, that's why I don't do endorsements. And I'm telling you, I got like 5 more over the weekend of people that want to come on this program and pump their services and their financial picks and all that stuff. And I just said, no, I'm good. Daniel says, novice question, how can a big company like McDonald's be able to hold so much debt? They buy back stock and they're with their debt. I just don't understand how they're able to stay afloat. Well, McDonald's is a unique one because McDonald's isn't necessarily just about the business. McDonald's is one of the largest real estate holders out there, and that's a bulk of their value is in real estate, land value. So you can take a loan out against another piece of real estate and continue to leverage that way. So I wouldn't worry so much about the debt because the debt that they have is going to be backed up predominantly by their land assets. Let's see. That's a dangerous line to cross, in my opinion. Once people who endorse stuff are on the hook for that product performance, it gets sticky. Yeah, I agree. You know, and like I say, if I'm Steph Curry, or even if I was Trader Merlin, and some guy says, hey, would you just want to do a commercial for an exchange, and we're going to pay you $5 million to do a commercial? I'm probably going to do it, guys. To do a commercial for a company, I will unless I know outright that they're a scam and a fraud. Why not? And remember, at the time that Steph Curry and other athletes did this, these ads for FTX, you had Sam Bankman-Fried was on the cover of like Wealth magazine and Money magazine. They call him the financial whiz kid, this new financial guru. He was an elite figure, and it didn't look shady at all. Even I was like, man, this guy's crazy. He's doing amazing things. And then the tide goes out, and the emperor is definitely wearing no clothes. So you're right. You're right, Stephen. I think it's a very slippery slope when you start to hold someone accountable for a bad product that they're promoting. And I guess it depends on the level of promotion, right? Is that what it is? I didn't know the stats, but Stephen says McDonald's owns the most valuable real estate in the world per square foot, and they've got so much of it. I mean, yeah, McDonald's hard to beat. $5 million to a commercial, I'm in, right? Yeah, but I still am not going to compromise my character. I'm still not going to compromise my integrity. I'm not going to promote anything that it would be bad. And I don't think that Steph Curry did anything wrong. I don't think he should be held responsible at all for the FTX losses. What's his name? Matt Damon, right? Matt Damon did all the Crypto.com stuff. And luckily, Crypto.com didn't crash. But if Crypto.com crashed, well, now, Matt Damon, could he go to jail? Oh, it's crazy. All right, let's see. If you keep it on cold storage, how can it be useful? Great question, Juan. So just like you have to determine your trading style, whether you want to be a long-term investor, a swing trader, a day trader, doing zero DTE stuff, you kind of have to figure out how you want to hold your crypto. Now, for those who know me, and most of the people that watch this show know me well enough, you know that I'm more of a long-term person, right? I'm a believer in this 4-year cycle with cryptocurrencies. I also take out the 4-year cycle. I'm a believer that down the road, our entire financial system, not just domestically, but globally, is going to start migrating over to digital systems, digital networks. And those payment systems aren't in place with current technology. So you need digital ecosystems and payment rails and blockchains to record everything with much faster finality than what you have in a traditional system. Visa, MasterCard doesn't average 2,400 transactions per second, or Visa does. 2,400 transactions per second. They say that they can max out at 50,000 transactions per second. Well, you know what? Solana, which I'll bring up the chart here so you guys can stop staring at my ugly mug. Solana can do 65,000 transactions per second, and they just implemented an upgrade to the network, which can get it to 1 million transactions per second. So if that's the case, then why would you need Visa or MasterCard? Because Visa, MasterCard takes 3% of the transaction for business. I know we've got business owners here, right? So you got business owners and they swipe the card, you lost 3%, and you're probably passing on your customer, understandably so. But if you had a choice to have a customer come in and say, hey, I'm going to pay $1,000 with my Visa card, now you've lost 3%, so take out $30. Or you got someone who comes in with Solana, and I'm going to pay $1,000 with Solana, and that transaction costs 4 cents. And where are you going to go? Of course, you go with the digital one. So I think that we'll start to see, as time goes on, more adoption. So therefore, 5-year down the road, 10-year, 15-year, I think that everything will be on these digital payment rails, and that's why I'm in early. I made a mistake in 2000 or year 2000. I was day trading the internet stocks, so day trading Amazon and WorldCoin, not WorldCoin. Oh my gosh. It's been so long, I can't even remember the damn stocks they lose all this money on. Exodus Communications was another one. All these .com companies. And I was just day trading them, trying to make a bunch of money. And I forgot, I was too arrogant and young to step back and look at the big picture and say, how's the internet changed the world? And now that I'm older, a little wiser, I look at how the monetary system is going to change, just like music has changed, just like vehicles have changed. They continue to go more and more digital. Everything seems to be going more and more digital. Money would be no different. So now, not WorldCom. I mean, I traded WorldCom as well, but that really wasn't a .com. That was telecommunications, but not really internet. So that's my perspective on it. So if you're thinking that long, and this goes a long-winded answer to get to Juan's question, I can use what's on my cold storage device. I can send this around. So if I need to buy something, let's say, a Big Eb's a car dealer and he's got a car for sale. And I'm like, hey, I'll pay you with, how much you want for this car? Let's say he's got my dream car, which I already had, but I'll buy the original, which is a 1955 Porsche 550 Spyder. That car probably cost about, if you find an original one, they're all in museums now because there's so few. I think there was 90 of them in existence in the world. They're going to cost you about $2 million easy for a piece of junk. You want one fully restored, you're talking 10, 15 million. So I could now just transfer over $5 million worth of Bitcoin. I could buy a house with this. I could just send this over to the title office and counts as assets. So it's just digital assets. And as these barriers to entry drop, when I say barriers to entry, what I mean is the banks. So as soon as the banks start saying, yep, we can accept it, now all of a sudden it becomes interchangeable. I can use Bitcoin, I can use cash, and maybe some of these other markets like Ethereum, Solana, and that's yet to be determined. But Bitcoin has already passed that threshold. So that's how it's useful. All right, let's see what I got. Yeah, they don't have a lot of cash flow, but they got a lot of real estate. Talking about McDonald's. Boy, you got a lot of questions here. Thank you, Lisa. Did everyone click the thumbs up? Well, if you don't like the show, then don't click the thumbs up. If you don't like the show, you got an email on your screen. You can email me and tell me what you didn't like about it. Obviously, I try to do the best I can to improve it. So if you like it, hit the thumbs up. If you're new, hit that subscribe button. Let's see. Steve says, I owned a business and ended up canceling taking credit cards. The cost was too much, 3% plus other fees, probably more like 5%. Yeah, but Stephen, here's the question. I'm glad you brought that up. Had this conversation the other night. When I went to the Forum to go see a concert in Los Angeles, the parking was $60 if you paid with a credit card, and it was either $70 or $80 if you paid cash. Because think about it. Their parking lot attendants aren't PhDs, right? They're not college grads. These are people who just need a job. And all of a sudden, some guy rolls up and hands you $80 in cash, and you just give them a little piece of paper to put on their dashboard. No one checks that parking permit once you're past that gate. And that guy could just literally pocket money all day long. In that case, you want to ban cash, right? You want to take credit cards only. So if you trust your employees implicitly, then take cash. But if you don't, man, cash is easy for theft. I'm no doctor, Juan. I thought about trying to get my PhD one day just so I could be called a doctor. But honestly, you know what the best PhD is? And I apologize for everybody out there getting your PhD. Experience. I don't think I need a degree to tell me that I'm a PhD in something. Immerse yourself. I'm pretty sure that if I was to take all the tests and everything, I would be a PhD in math or econ or trading or whatever the PhD would be. But I don't care. I don't need it. Data mining by credit cards only. So obviously the data collection by credit cards becomes incredibly important, and that would probably not be much different with blockchain. So if you're using Solana to purchase things, it would keep the same amount of record keeping. So depending on which blockchain you're using, right? So some are more privacy focused, others are more open source public. Let's see, what do you got? Visa, MasterCard coming out of their own stablecoin. Yeah, and Margaret, it's a keep up with the Joneses world, right? Those credit cards realize today that they have to come out with a stablecoin. They have to change their fundamental way of doing business. Real quick, before I go too long here, I do want to talk about this Empire State Manufacturing Index. And the reason I bring this one up is we've heard so much about, we're going to raise tariffs. We want to bring all this manufacturing back to America. It's going to be huge. No one knows manufacturing like I do, so let's bring it to America. That's the talk track. And great. If it can bring manufacturing back to America, I'm all for it. I just don't think it's going to happen. So I've been keeping an eye on this data, which is the Empire State Manufacturing Index. And this is just a survey of optimism in the New York area. We obviously have several other ones that we'll track. But notice the kind of the general consensus for manufacturing is not that great. We've been below zero for the past 4 months. And if you look back all the way to 2022, I would argue that 75 to 85% of the time we're below zero, meaning contraction and pessimism. So not really good there on that one. Keep in mind that tomorrow we do have some pretty big economic announcements. And as the week goes on, you guys all understand it gets bigger and big. Wednesday obviously is the big day for economic announcements. But here's what's happening tomorrow. You do have retail sales numbers. And we went through this weird little blip where the whole tariff war caused people to just rush and buy things like me, and I did buy some stuff, bought that in a camera. You can see that big spike here for the month of April. Then we saw a pretty significant drop down here for the month of May, and June will be interesting. Right now they're expecting a negative 0.5 contraction, meaning a lot less spending. That's not that good. So this will be the big piece of information for tomorrow. When you look at the earnings calendar, you just have, let me see. I was trying to remember off the top of my head, but I'm going to have to go look at the chart or the table just to tell me here. And usually a Jabal. So a chip maker, JBIL or JABIL, ticker symbol is JBL, is coming out with earnings tomorrow. Let's just go to look at JBL. Been doing great. I mean, you talk about just another beautiful chart. You had that great pullback, and this goes back to, I think, Big Eb's point. Like, if you have a company that you feel good about and that it's solid, that this is going to be a good buy point, even though it's had a big sell-off. Yeah. So on Thursday, Juneteenth, I won't be doing a show, right? I won't be doing a show just because the markets are closed. If the markets are closed, guys, you just know I'm generally not going to do a show. I like to look at current market data, and yeah. So no show on Thursday, but I'll be back on Friday. We'll definitely do that. My new goal in life is to be a parking attendant at Dodger Stadium, cash only. Hey, Mike, you think there's got to be cameras there, right? Because when you pay $100 for a parking ticket in cash, it's so easy to just take the $100 and pocket it, right? I think you'd all agree that when you go to a stadium to go watch a baseball game, or a concert, as soon as you drive your car through the ticket window, there is nobody walking through the parking lot checking the dashboard for that little piece of paper. So, I mean, honestly, if I'm a ticket vendor, yeah, what a great way to make a few. Because if it's $100 per car, which is what is at SoFi Stadium for like Rams games, all I have to do is get one or two of those, maybe 3 or 4 out of thousands of cars, and I make myself $500-600 in a day. Heck yeah! No, JBL is not the same as the speakers. Now, Jabal Circuit, semiconductors. Jabal Circuit. All right. Let's see what else is on there before. Let's just start calling him. No, don't call me Dr. Merlin. It just sounds too ego. I don't have that kind of ego, my friend. You don't need to be called Dr. Merlin. Merlin is a bad enough name. I'm okay there. No problem, Big Up. I gotta run too. I gotta run too. And Steven, and now you guys are gonna be running out and trying to find job applications for parking at the Forum in SoFi Stadium in LA. I mean, we've all been to these events. It's crazy how much money parking. I mean, unbelievable. Anyway. All right, so that's pretty much it for me. From a technical perspective, guys, there wasn't anything that was a chart pattern per se that I think was dangerous to us. We've been talking about the S&P. We did have a little dip below 6,000. We're back above it now. To me, it looks like we're going to be headed towards that all-time high. At least the 6,166 looks like the next major stopping point. Crude oil. I did get a question about crude oil. It was like, where does it go next? Well, today it already violated what I would have thought would have happened, which would have been the market rallies up, breaks through this overhead supply at $72, and then comes back down and retests it, and then moves up. But we're already down below that one. If this peace in the Middle East does happen, at least they negotiate and start talking, and we get some, okay, we're not going to drop bombs, then you'll probably see crude oil drop even more. As long as that uncertainty from that region is removed, better. But again, snap your fingers, and that thing could escalate in a matter of no time. So for me, it's just stay the course. I think really it's all about Wednesday. So tomorrow we'll definitely do a show, but Wednesday is really going to be the exciting one just because of the FOMC meeting. But you got retail sales tomorrow, Jabal Circuit reporting. That, my friends, is your show for today. If you have anything you want me to discuss on tomorrow's show, let me know. You can email me at tradermerlin@gmail.com. And for those of you who are in the Discord room, great. I'll try to post some stuff. I'm just so dang busy. My goal was not to moderate a whole Discord channel. It was just to give you guys a forum and a venue to go and talk amongst each other because you can't really talk in here. So the Discord will be down in the chat room. So thank you, everybody. Have a fantastic remainder of your day. I will see you mañana.